And we are now live. Going left to right then. Hinesh, you want to go first?
Yep, so for myself, I picked up a story on Met Plus to test the application helper. I'll probably do that tonight. That's about it for me, no blockers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sage, how about yourself?
I have not done any software work to speak of in the last week or so, except I merged a couple of pull requests, and I'm in the process of getting myself reoriented around what I should be prioritizing this week. And I have a pull review updating some sort of user interface stuff from Sagel that I'll check out later today, and then I'm not sure where things will go from there. In other news, we are all set to get started on this grant-funded sort of contract with Agile Ventures, which I think you, Patrick, it sounds like are possibly going to be the project manager for, to sort of represent the WikiEd project in time zones that are more convenient for people who can't make this meeting. I don't know if you've talked with Sam about that yet, but
yeah, I have. So it looks like I'm the most. That's good. So is a contract in place, or do we? Maybe we don't.
I have a contract, and I have permission to go forward based on it now. So my team was meeting for our all staffing person last week, and so none of us had much bandwidth for other things outside of that meeting. But I now have sort of the okay from my management to say yes to the contract that Sam drafted, which I had given sort of the looks good to me, but I need to check back on previously.
Okay. Yeah, Sam is out this week. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Yeah, so it may make sense to wait until next week. I need to understand. Sam's waved his arms a little bit and talked a little bit about the conditions, et cetera, the criteria for success. But I need to kind of see it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk over that now, we could do that real briefly, or maybe after the Scrum itself, or we could put it off until another day. It's up to you.
We could do it after the Scrum, sure. Okay, sounds good. Sejal, how about yourself? How are you doing?
Hi, so I've been playing around with WikiEd profile pages, and that's about it from my side.
Okay, sounds good. For myself, we caught up on MetPlus yesterday. I told everybody we had a client meeting yesterday, which went well. We went over progress on the UI, showed up some stuff that you've done, Hinesh, as well as Arun and Laura. So we'd like to see that. We're going to be going in a pilot with him by the end of next week, which is basically him using the software, and then he'll bring in people after that once he takes it for a shakedown cruise, and hopefully we don't have to do anything else to it to make it available to other people. We'll see how that goes. We've also received job descriptions and resumes, which are text documents we need to add to the Cruncher so it can do his text classification for its Bayesian analysis that it does, so it can match a resume to a job based upon crunching texts of both descriptions as well as resumes. On WikiEd, I've made some progress on a story that I've got. Could use some help with testing. So maybe after this stage, we can look at that as well.
Great.
And that's it for me. So I think that's the end of the Scrum. So I don't know if anybody else needs to connect, discuss right now.
Nope. On Met Plus, so it looks like we might get more work after the client uses it. Is that right?
There's no doubt about it. We've got a lot of things that we've got in the backlog that he has expressed that he wishes to do, because we've held off on all of that because we need to get MVP. But I'm sure we'll have ideas coming out once he starts using it. He already gave us one yesterday about, which we're going to put on the backlog.
can't remember his name. Yu, I think his name's Yu. Did he?
Chet.
No.
Chet.
Hewitt.
Hewitt.
That's it.
Yeah.
Did you ask him about the meeting?
Well, he and I talked, and again, I'm just seeing who's available. So I haven't asked if he wants to do it on Saturday morning yet.
Okay.
I'll probably cycle back to him and see if that's okay with him too.
Okay. Nice.
Yep. Thanks for remembering that. Okay. Let's see. So, say, do you want to look at this issue that I'm having with me? You don't mind? You're mute.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let me see. Get screen share going here. So let me fill you in on just roughly where I'm at. So the story I'm working on is when you want to assign a course to a campaign, and so we have a select list of campaigns from the database, and I think the story was we wanted those sorted in time sequenced order in descending order. So that was a pretty straightforward fix. It literally was just a one-liner fix on the controller, or change to one line in the controller.
Yep.
But I'm having trouble testing it. So let me show you what happens. So I'll show you real quickly what I'm doing in terms of testing. So this is course page spec.rb feature test. And I don't know if you're familiar with this. If not, I can pop up to the top and show you what's going on there. But there's some, basically this is creating, sorry for the scrolling real fast. I know that's tough to see when you look at it like this, but it's creating this course that's used in these tests. And it's putting this course into this slug, whatever that is. But anyway, that's a way to organize courses, I guess.
So the slug is basically that's what comes after the courses in the route in the URL.
Okay.
So that's the unique part of the URL is what slug means here.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. So we've got one campaign here I created. Well, this is campaign that this particular course is being added to. And so I made some changes here, and I'll explain those in a minute. And I also sleep for 1 second, then I create a second campaign because we want to have a time difference between the two campaigns we're looking for in the select list. So let me go down to the actual test. There's a bunch of other test objects being
just
created.
Really
here.
quickly, is your corresponding change to the code based on like the created at? Is that why it's?
Let's make sure. Is this course's controller? It is the show. Which one was it? Which?
And I mean, the reason I ask is because if it's based on just like there it is.
Yeah.
All order created at.
This is what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Is that what you expect?
I mean, so that should have the same behavior as what I expect. But I think it probably has specificity like more narrow than just like the minute. I mean the second. So you might not need to do that. But like, I mean, I sort of like object a little bit to adding like sleep into the tests when we can avoid it. And if it falls back to if the secondary sort works being like ID, like IDs will increment. And so like, even if you don't do created at here, if you just like do order it by ID descending, it should have the exact same behavior. And you can probably avoid that sleep.
Yeah, I could.
Sorry, that I didn't mean to divert you here. But yes, I think I'm ready to move on. Sorry.
Yeah, when I saw two test objects before creating back to back there, and I didn't see that I was able to order them by created at time. Maybe the time differential was within the level of granularity at the created at. Created at, I'm sure, is under a second granularity. I'm not sure how under it is, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess it would have been very close together if it's just like running it all first and then, yeah, okay. Because I think the database stuff will be staying in memory within the context of a single test. So.
Right, right. Okay, so let's see. So where am I? So course creation, not that one. We are at course page. So anyway, there's some objects set up. Here's an overview of the overall page here, some tests here. And then there's a overview details editing, which is where I want to be. That's when we're actually editing the page itself. Let me see if I can show you what that looks like for those who are not aware. So the page is this. This is a course page that we're looking at. And we have a details sidebar over here, and we can click on edit, which brings up these controls, cancel and save, and you can edit various attributes of the course down here. So that's what's going on with this overview details editing. That's what this means. So there's a couple tests here that were here before, and then I added this test, show campaigns list in order to sending create time, or ascending ID. If we want to do it that way, that's fine. So here I'm taking out the course that was created up top, and I'm actually nulling out all the foreign IDs for campaign because I want to take that out. Because what I noticed is if there's any campaign already assigned to the course, I don't get the select list. It just has the campaign listed there. It's a link, so maybe if I click that link, I would get the select course, but I don't know. I didn't bother to worry about that. We log in. I sleep 5 here. I don't know. The reason I did that is that this test had a sleep 5. I was having all kinds of problems. I may not need that. In fact, I probably don't. I probably don't need 5 seconds in any case. We load the course, and then we click on the Edit Details button, at which point we bring up these controls, and these things become now editable. The problem that I've got is that pretty much everything on this page goes editable, except for campaigns, which generally I don't see this. I'll show you that in this right now. In fact, let me look at that. Where is Safari? So here's a snapshot of what I see when I do that. So the test is clicked on the edit button, so we see these controls.
Mm-hmm.
We see these things are editable here. However, down here, campaigns just says none, and there's no plus sign to click for a selectable list. And I noticed this when I was playing with the UI as well. We don't get this here showing as editable to campaigns until we hit the submit button up here.
Ah, yes. Mm-hmm.
When we do that, I don't know if that's a bug or if that particular thing was not allowed to be editable until the submit occurs.
That's correct. So that, yeah, that's the expected behavior.
Okay, so when we do that, then we have this thing home, which is fine. It changed to home now to go back home, and now we can edit this thing. Okay.
Yeah, so if you want me to explain a little bit about why it does this.
Sure. Yep.
So you're kind of seeing a cross of 2 different interfaces here, because you're both acting as the instructor and as like the WikiEd staff. But so normally, if you're the instructor, then you need to click submit to indicate that your course is ready for review by WikiEd staff. And then after that happens, then if you were not an admin, you would see a message that basically says, thanks, WikiEd staff will review your course. But because you're an admin, it instead has sort of the admin message that is like, okay, this course has been submitted. Your next step as an admin is to review it and approve it by adding a campaign. And so adding a campaign, adding the first campaign to it, is what makes the course live and able to be used. So this sort of doubles as both marking the campaign and as, like, if it's part of any campaign, basically that means that it's live and able to be used by people. And so that's why if it hasn't been submitted, then you don't have that option to even add it to a campaign in the first place, because the implication there is that the instructor is still working on it, and so you don't want to approve it before they've made all the changes that they want to make. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that's when it becomes available.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, part of slowness is just I'm not familiar with the app behavior, and so I'm not sure if what I'm looking at is normal or a bug or something. So anyway, with that, I went in, so I stopped the debugger, and I actually manually clicked on a submit so I can get that out of my way, just to see what would happen. And of course, it goes into API save course, starts saving it. And then I go through the rest of my test, and it blows up because on submission, evidently there are things that are happening that require various test objects to be created that aren't created in my environment. For instance, let's see. I've got, yeah, so evidently an email is sent out upon submission, amongst other things, and the test objects I'm creating doesn't have an email for it. So I guess, yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. So there's no instructor for this course, it looks like, is the...
There's no instructor for the test course being created here. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Evidently, that seems to be what's happening. So I guess, is it better to just go ahead and beef up the test object, the course object, add an instructor and whatever else is needed, as well as create the instructor, make sure they have a valid email, etc. And then in my test, I click submit, and then I can go ahead and see the control I'm looking for. Or is there some other place where it'd be better and faster for me to just go ahead and add my test that's already got all that preamble out of the way? If you know what I'm asking.
I do know what you're asking, yes. I would say that a lot of the feature specs basically could benefit from essentially the type of refactoring that you're implicitly asking for here, of an easy way to basically like create a course sort of at a certain like human meaningful stage of its process here. Like, you know, with all sort of the expected things happening, like it has an instructor at this point, which like any real course will, because whoever created it like through the interface would automatically be added as the first instructor.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout our test suite, all of that stuff is just done like through you know, the same methods that you're already using here of, you know, creating a campaign, sort of managing the data that you want in the context for it. So I would say just adding an instructor and getting through it that way at this point. And then, I mean, I would also say that, like,
yeah, go ahead.
It might make more sense to test this in the context of, I think, yes. So I think, like, I will file a bug basically to sort of set up some helpers that will make some of this easier to do. Mm-hmm. But there is a better place for you to do this. So you're looking at the course spec, and what you instead probably want to be looking at is the admin spec. And in particular, there's already a spec based on approving a course.
Admin role?
Admin role. Mm-hmm. And so somewhere within there, you'll find one that basically tests what happens when you make a course live. That one right there, adding a course to a campaign.
Oh wow, look at that.
So I would take that one and add in the additional campaign, and and then just verify that it's coming out in the order before you actually click one. So then you can just roll it into this, because I think adding a new, like, sort of independent feature spec for this change, and sort of the burden that puts on the length of the test suite versus like the possibility of like how, like, I mean, you know, like the order in which the campaigns show up is like not a severe bug that, like, if it regresses, it's like the end of the world or anything. So I think, you know, I would rather not test it at all than like add a few seconds to the test suite, but I think we could just roll it right into this one.
Okay, so we'll add it to this one. Yep. Okay. And this is admin ready, to your point. Okay, that would be it then. Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
Is it supposed to be adding a course to a campaign or campaign to a course?
Both. I would say that, like, we talk about both of those things. We talk about a campaign having lots of courses, and we also talk about a course having one or more campaigns. And I think they're both like modeled as has many relationships. Like, so I think like technically either one like is correct, and in this context, it's kind of I think probably I would describe it as adding a campaign to a course in this context would be probably the most accurate description, but like technically they're the same thing.
Okay.
So would you rather that I sort the campaigns by ID, or do you want to stick with time-based?
Either way is fine. I mean, my intuition is that they would be like negligibly different in performance, and you've already done the created at, and it makes the intention reading that code unambiguous. So I think it's fine.
Yeah, I like time ordered myself as opposed to ID. I'm a little leery of using ID. I know it's monotonically increasing. It never goes below the prior value. But if somebody actually did create an object and actually manually set the created at, like I'm doing for my test purposes, it would break the logic. Not that anybody would ever do that for production code, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah. So ID would be better from that point of view. But I'll leave it at created at then. Okay, this is good. Thank you. Let's see. You want to talk about this this other thing with Agile Ventures, this contract or structure you want to put in place?
Sure. Let me. I don't know if you got the estimate that Sam created. If you don't, I can email that to you.
He showed me something about a few hours there, and broken down by daily scrums, sprint planning, sprint retrospective. I think he had a 10-week timeline there, something like that.
Okay.
I'm sure I've got it somewhere.
I don't have anything more detailed or accurate than that. I mean, I think the general shape of it, right, is that we have sort of $2,000 worth of budget to do this like contract with Agile Ventures, and I mean the purpose of it is to basically like see whether like in sort of do more things, get more done with this specific kind of sort of support of like, you know, providing sort of some like project management and a point of contact, like in the time zones when a lot of the Agile Ventures community is around, but I'm not. And so this seemed like sort of a sensible way to break things down in terms of how to spend that time. But like you know, like to a large degree, I'm deferring to Sam here on like that being a reasonable way to like spend that time. And the point being like to sort of do as much as we can with this extra money that we have to like improve the sort of long-term prospects of like doing good work through the Agile Ventures community.
Okay.
And like our goal in large part is to basically like evaluate sort of the longer term potential. So I mean, I think, you know, like we have a specific objective of like supporting at least 10 code contributions during the period of the project, which I mean, I think my like the implicit sort of idea there would be like that I think that number was based on sort of like a baseline of like what now almost 2 months ago, when we were sort of having we had you know very few so far to that point code contributions from Agile Ventures participants. And I think we've sort of probably passed 10 now, at least in the last month. Maybe not at least, but close to it. So I mean, I think, you know, that's a pretty conservative number there, and like it's just sort of there to have a number for grant reporting purposes and stuff like that. But you know, the idea is to, I mean, the number of code contributions is far less important than like basically seeing whether it makes sense both for the time to put into it and in terms of whether it makes sense to sort of in the longer term try to get more budget for like putting into sort of Agile Ventures support.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well, I get all that, and I've got the data that you just alluded to from Sam. I think I need to think about this and then cycle back to you, Sage, and how we want to structure this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about for each sprint, which I think we're going to have 5 sprints of 2-week duration, that kind of thing. 1 hour kickoff, 1 hour retrospective. Not sure we need an hour for each of those, and a quarter hour Scrum, 15-minute Scrum per day. That all makes perfect sense to me. I want to make sure that we get the maximum value out of it, though. Mm-hmm. So let me think about that, and let me cycle back to you probably tomorrow. Then we can talk about that.
Great.
And you, as the product owner, of course, will still obviously be doing the things the product owner does, right?
That's right.
Deciding what goes in the backlog, deciding what goes into the sprint backlog in particular, as we build each sprint, all of that, participating in the retrospective and the sprint review. Of course, you do on the fly and continuous review of acceptance, but I don't know if we want to have a formal acceptance at the end of each sprint and move things then into master, or we want to keep it like we've been doing it now.
I mean, I would say that I would rather keep it like it's been going now, because sort of waiting 2 weeks to merge something is probably not much of a point, given sort of the like social situation that we have around how code moves in this project.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be introducing some unnecessary step, right? So
yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep it kind of in real time as we go along then. Good. So I'll also try to see if I can start recruiting more team members to the project. I think Ganesh has done some good work for us. I think Arun's done some little work for us as well. But maybe we can bring more people on board also. So
I'll be happy to help out more.
I mean, I think, you know, my rough impression at this point is that like that's the part of it that like I think there's a lot of opportunity if you sort of like have good ways of you know, reaching more people about it, which I'm not entirely sure that there are, but if there are, like I think that's going to be an effective way, because I think I've been able to sort of keep up with the volume of you know, people interested in contributing who, you know, like have specific questions or want to take next steps, and would, you know, be at this point happy to have more without sort of feeling like things were getting out of control on my side of just being able to like manage people who are interested. And you know, the sort of like spread of like skill levels that people come in with has been enough that like it's not been like, I don't feel like I've been, you know, sort of wasting my time, which is great. And you know, like I think one of the open questions is how long sort of people stick around once they, you know, start contributing, because obviously like if they stick around a while, then like, you know, sort of over time, sort of like the time that they spend and that I spend helping them acquaint themselves with the app like becomes more and more valuable. But if it's more like they pop in and then they sort of move on quickly, then it's closer to a wash or like negative long term in terms of like how I spend my time. So that's one of the sort of main considerations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially since Agile Venture really is structured to pull in people who are relatively inexperienced who want to learn a particular technology. That's the thing. So yeah, it's a balancing act there. Although I think we've seen good stuff coming out of people like Ganesh and Arun, motivated people who are smart, who can learn fairly quickly without a lot of hand-holding. So hopefully we see that caliber of person coming in. A real newbie who can't spell React, for instance, well, maybe that's okay, but who's willing to learn it. we have to watch for those things as well, those time sinks.
Sure.
I agree 100%.
I mean, the biggest pull on this project is that React's so big these days. I mean, it's huge. So that's the biggest plus point of participating in this project. Plus, you get the tutorship from Sage and yourself, and obviously myself once I learn React properly. So it's quite a big pull.
Yeah, well, it should be attractive. Yeah, it's working to a degree from that point of view, definitely. Okay, well, I think we've had a good trial run of this effort anyway. We've been conducting these daily scrums, so
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with kind of continuing, maybe a little bit more structure.
I mean, I think a big part of the idea that I had, that like I was going into this with, would be that that like there would be sort of a specific project meeting, like a scrum about this meeting that happened like earlier in the day.
Oh,
So
I
that
see.
there would be like a regular like sort of project virtual meeting like outside of when I was available, to sort of make it more accessible to people that were not operating in more or less US time.
Yeah, we could probably put that together if we have enough people like that.
I'm open to that not being the case, but that's kind of what I had thought of as sort of one of the main potential like benefits to doing this.
No, I hear you. I mean, the reality is I'm only 3 hours behind you, so the ideal person would be somebody 12 hours away from me, or thereabouts.
Well, it also seems that for a lot of that time period, right, like the community is very quiet, and it also seems like, although we're 3 hours apart, seems like maybe you get started much earlier in the morning than I do, because you're often like running the, relative to me, like 3 a.m. things.
Yeah, I'm an early morning guy anyway, so that works out.
So I mean, I think like it seems like around that time is one of sort of the peaks in activity, or like after that. But I mean, I'm also pretty open to like how we do this. Like it's I want to sort of account for what you think makes sense and what makes sense with your own schedule and time constraints. So like whatever, I'm open to pretty much anything. But
perhaps having after the scrum even, because you can attract the European time zone people around this time. Because right now in London it's like 7:30, so a lot of people get home from work around this time and do what they got to do. So probably around this sort of time for European time zone. I mean, America probably earlier, but maybe twice a day even.
Okay, well, need to consider that too then.
And I would also say that, like, I mean, like I could and would be happy to sort of run a project-specific Scrum, like after the general, like America's Scrum.
Yeah.
And so like, if there are people that wanted to show up to it, I mean, I think at this point the overlap between this general America's Scrum and like the people interested in the project is enough that we haven't sort of felt the need to do that. But I mean, I think adding sort of another like more convenient or just different like sort of place, time to touch base with people interested was potentially what I saw as the biggest advantage.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, right now we kind of have the MetPlus project and these overlap, but we don't spend a lot of time in MetPlus because it's been on the back burner, to be honest, as we waited for the client to get ready for us. That could heat up, in which case we can split them up, and that'll work too. But all right, well, let's think about it and come back to it maybe later in the week, and maybe start formally next week.
Yep, sounds good.
Cool. All right, I'll send another email to Sam just so that he has it in his backlog to say that we're ready to move forward, but that I know he's on vacation, and so talk to him next week probably.
Yep, absolutely. Sounds good. All right then. Good. Anything else? Anybody?
Sage, I wanted to catch up with you.
Let's do it. You want to stick around and do it with just you and I, or yes, or if you don't care, we can stay on and they can stay or leave as they like.
Yeah, we can stay on and people can leave.
Do you want this to be recorded? Because if I drop, the recording will stop, of course. So it's up to you guys. Doesn't matter, or
It's up to you, Dale.
Yeah, it's okay if it's not recorded.
okay. All right, great. Well,
Oh yeah, great. Go ahead.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Talk to you tomorrow. Bye now.
Bye.